Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of the RBM Roundtable, where we get the chance to catch up with the Regional Bowls Manager staff of Bowls Australia all across the nation. I've got two great guests joining me today. First of all is the RBM for Western Victoria and the Northern Territory in Paul Jackson. How are you, Paul?
Good, thanks, Clive. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, very well. And also our newest member of the RBM team down there in Tassie, Alan Eadie. How are you, Al?
I'm good, Clive. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, very well, very well. All right, let's get into it. Paul, start us off, mate. Give us a rundown of your region, exactly the areas you cover, and of course you'll be familiar to people in far north Queensland as well. How long have you been in the role?
Totally in the role, just about 3.5 years. I did 1.5 years initially up in Queensland, slipped out somewhere else for a little period, then slipped back in as soon as I could and ended up back in Victoria, Western Victoria.
Yeah.
And during the course of that, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to also look after the Northern Territory.
Very good. And you branch into New South Wales as well, don't you?
Yeah, I get over the border when I'm allowed to, when I can.
And Alan, obviously your area is fairly well defined. It is an island after all, so we can sort of picture your area. But how long have you been in the role?
6 months, mate. So yeah, started in March, which was an interesting starting point in the role. But 6 months been out on the road, and yeah, as you say, got Tassie and pretty well defined here.
Must have been an interesting challenge that, because you started in a role that's all about visiting clubs, and you weren't allowed outside to go and do so.
Yeah, absolutely. It was get out and tell everyone they couldn't play lawn bowls and they couldn't participate. So interesting start, but no, we're all right here now, and very enjoyable start to the role, mate.
Very good, very good. Paul, let's talk about the COVID side of things. You're seeing restrictions starting to lift in regional Victoria. There must be some sense of relief and some sense of, I guess, happiness that people can get out there and enjoy the greens again.
I think it's fairly substantial. The amount of clubs you're talking to and the positivity issues. It probably all starts tomorrow. First weekend, they're really going to get a chance to go out and they still have some restrictions on people inside, but the opportunities there to put people back on the green, have the tills click. Clubs even collect their membership dues, stuff like that we haven't been able to achieve for the last near on 6 months.
And no doubt you've been catching up closely with a lot of your clubs, albeit via phone and other means, and how the club's been going.
It's difficult in Victoria in respect to you've got two areas, like your lower area, for instance, they don't play bowls during the winter period, but up north, yes, they do play bowls. They're probably the ones that are noticing a change that little bit harder. But the good thing is they're all positive, they're all going forward. And when we had the first open up after the initial restrictions, the comments were, it was noticeable that there seemed to be more people wanting to play social bowls. They were members, but they'd been locked up and cooped up, and they just wanted to get out and just, breathe air and just participate. And I think going forward, hopefully that'll flow through.
Fantastic. And Alan, in Tassie, I mean, it's probably been better news in Tasmania, hasn't it? I mean, you've been active for the last few months, and things have been okay.
Yeah, we've been quite lucky here, Clive, in Tassie, that we got started early, and as you say, there's a lot of water around us, so we've been able to keep to ourselves and get started, and had the added positive of a lot of people haven't been able to leave and escape the winter. So they've been in clubs, the numbers have been good in our midweek social bowls, and things have restarted pretty well. So yeah, we certainly can't complain, and things are all right as we speak.
All right, Paul, I guess this opportunity where clubs have been a little quieter, obviously haven't been able to open the doors, it's given club administrators and clubs in general the opportunity to look at some of the things they might not have had time to look at in the past, or haven't made the time to look at in the past, and maybe do some planning and do some other things. What have you seen out there in that space?
I think it's good because really they've been made to look at their business or their club structure. They haven't been able to just accept this is this year, next year, the year after, but they've got to look at how they get people into the doors. community's a big thing. Like somehow every person out there is a potential client or someone that could come in and be a part of your club. I think you need to identify that a member doesn't have to be a pennant bowler. And someone that doesn't play bowls may well play bowls, but unless they come through the door and experience the club and the people in it and just participate, we're never going to know. We need to lure those people through the doors, just to make them feel part of the community club again.
Yeah, and I guess you both touched on the fact that people are looking more to get into social bowls and so forth. But, Paul, the community may well at the moment have a hunger to be able to get out and enjoy some social activities, and there's no better place than the Bowls Club. Well,
especially in Victoria, like a lot of my area is rural, regional, country towns. There's been no football.
Yeah.
They're aching for stuff. Fancy living in a country town that's had no football or had no pub open. They must be really craving for activity. And I'm sure a bowls club offering that, they'll get that business, they'll come through the doors.
Basically gives a club a license to try some things, doesn't it? Maybe try something they haven't tried before.
You can't fail if you don't try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, I guess in your area, the opportunity for clubs to plan and to look to the future and what they want to achieve in the future. Again, an opportunity sort of to reset and say, well, where do we want to go? And you've got a wonderful example of what can be achieved with what's happening in Devonport.
Yeah, you're right. I think it is a great opportunity. Clubs are now... They've been forced into looking ahead and going, what can we do to be here in 10, 15, 20 years, not just next year, as Jacko said. So Devonport's a great example for sporting clubs coming together to go through a long process of planning and engagement with councils and government, but to get some funding to now have a world-class facility there and something that's, I guess, stabilised them and given them a future into the long term. So the example's there for all our other clubs to look outside the square and go, it's not just about next year and it's not just about pennant bowls, as Jacko said, but it's about having a club here for the community for the next 15, 20 years. So, yeah, opportunities there, and we're seeing more and more examples in Tassie at the moment.
It's world class. Tell us a little bit about it. What facilities have they got?
Yeah, so the Devonport and Sprayton Bowls clubs came together with the local croquet club and the Devonport Golf Club. So 4 interesting clubs there. I can only assume it took a while to convince the bowls clubs to join with their neighbourly rivals, I suppose. But they brought that together down at the Devonport Country Club, which is where the golf club was originally. And massive indoor facility with restaurants, bars, 3 outdoor greens, croquet, and a top-of-the-range golf course. It's an amazing setup and somewhere that I think we can run some great carnivals and some great events. So they've done really well, and I think there's some other clubs looking to follow in their footsteps.
Wow, we certainly encourage anyone that's visiting down that way to check that out. That sounds amazing. Paul, back to you. Grants is always a healthy discussion at clubs. Clubs are looking for that funds injection and so forth when they've got a project on their mind, and it's an area that the RBM team can really assist with.
Oh, look, it's an important part of our role. We can get the information, we gain the information, we work with the clubs so that we can help them prepare their applications and get the funding. I suggest to clubs that they should make a bucket list so that they've got in front of them a rough idea what they need to do. And if a grant opportunity comes up, then they've got the ability to try to marry everything in. I really think it's important that every club identify someone within the club that's going to take responsibility for the information. Not so much to do the work, but be there to at least read it and try to marry it up with the bucket list. It hurts you when you see opportunity slip past because it slips past. In my particular area, I've got something like, 32 or 34 councils. You can go onto their websites and get onto their emails so that you get the information. The same with Vic Sport. The opportunities are there, and it's money that can help achieving what it wants. I also suggest the clubs think about their capital. I cry when I see a club has gone out and spent 30 or 40,000 to do something out of their own money, yet they could have sat back. And we know when these grants are roughly coming, we need to be aware of that. Examples, a shade grant, we know that comes out once a year, so don't go and spend your 20 or 30 grand and replace the shelter. Have a look at your bucket list and match it up and match the need up. But councils want to work with you. Like I really think that the governments, both federal and state, they're going to put money out there to try to make people smile. So let's put it in the bowls clubs and we can all smile.
It's a really good point. And in preparing for one grant, you find you can often reuse a lot of that information in a lot of different areas, can't you, Paul? It's not necessarily just for grants. You might be able to use that information you gather in lots of different areas.
Well, the good thing in Victoria, we've got 7 or 8, well, in my particular patch, we've got 7 or 8 sports assemblies. They're tremendous. They're government places that this is their job. They run courses to train people, webinars to teach people how to do grants. They have cheat sheets, whatever you want. It's all there available. It's just a case of putting it together and using it.
Fantastic. And Alan, I guess the Devonport example is just one example of where, as Jacko just mentioned, the relationships with council, the relationships with those external stakeholders really come to the fore when clubs are looking for project approvals and grants.
Yeah, for sure. So important, mate. I think it's a very long-term thing. I think we're probably not going to walk into a local government or council office for the first time and they sign off on a major development. But long process, building that relationship, being engaged with them. And I think a big part of it is a lot of clubs are doing good things in the community and they're not telling the story. So continuing to tell the story to the wider public, but obviously to your council and local government areas, because if they can see a history of, what you've been doing in the area, then you're more chance. So, but yeah, long-term thing, staying engaged. We often hear that comment that the council doesn't do anything for me, so we don't talk to them. I think just continue to knock on their door and let them know that you're here and this is what we're doing. So.
Yeah, there's definitely a role in clubs for that relationship manager that deals with council. It doesn't have to be the president. Presidents change. You want that wonderful relationship. So it may well be that it's someone that sits off to the side that looks after that liaison with the councils and so forth.
Absolutely.
All right, Jacko, we've talked a bit about Victoria. Let's talk NT, because you do some wonderful work up there as well. Haven't been able to visit there in a little while, obviously, for COVID reasons, as we know. But they're always a keen bunch up there and always looking for new ideas.
They're all always prepared to go outside the square and have a crack at something different. If it's playing nine-a-side pennant or fancy dress bowls or... The biggest difficulty is obviously distance. So it really isn't the attraction for them, even though it's important. It's not the important thing for the clubs up there to survive. It's more based on social participation. Barefoot bowls, huge. 500, 600, 700 people a week on greens. It's revenue for the club and it's people involved in the sport. The two Darwin clubs are big on it. Alice Springs is big on it, and the others to a lesser extent. It's a different environment. Very good social environment too, Clive.
Of course, Jacko, and also some involvement up there with schools.
Yeah, look, there's one particular club at Rum Jungle, Grass Club, 4 members. They mow the green with a push mower, as basic as you could get. Yet they put somewhere between 2,500 to 3,000 kids through on school programs a year. It's an area where there's a lot of school camps go to, and up to the bowls club they go of an evening, all over it. That's a pretty big effort for a little club. And as I said, all volunteers. So you can imagine 4 members having to look after 2,500 kids. My God, I couldn't do it.
It doesn't leave many excuses for people that say they can't find people to do the job, can that? That is fantastic.
That's pretty.
And of course, we are when we talk about school involvement. Of course, we've got the wonderful Sporting Schools program that that clubs and schools can get involved in, and we're always looking for more coaches. So if you are interested in getting involved in some sporting schools coaching, get in touch with your local RBM. You can do that by heading to bowls.com.au, head to the club support section, and all the information on the regional bowls managers in there, and they will be very pleased to hear from you. Can help set you up, and if you love working with kids, it's a great way to go. So great story there from the Northern Territory. Thanks, Jacko. And Alan, I believe you've been doing some work with Beck at Bowls Tasmania on some online offerings during the COVID situation in particular.
Absolutely, Clive. We, I guess we just saw when clubs shut down how big a part of the community they were, and the effect it had on people and their engagement with other people. And so Rebecca probably drove it, and Bowls has been great in that space. Some Q&As, some webinars where we just connected with club members and made sure we were in contact about potential return to plays, and made sure they understood the guidelines that clubs were under at the time. And the feedback was amazing, that they appreciated that we were touching base with them and giving them an opportunity from their house to still engage with the Bowls community. So I think, as I said, sports has been shown to be a massive part of communities, and that's never been bigger than now. And some great stories also in Tassie from clubs who had rosters for their board members to go out and make sure they rang every club member once a week in their club just to see how they were doing, touch base, let them know they'd love to catch up with the club as soon as we can. So yeah, it's been really good, especially in Tassie, but I think sport's playing a massive role in getting the whole country back on our feet and back together. So.
I think that's so relevant. I'll come to you on that, Paul, because that is so relevant. We talk about our clubs and we picture the building, but the building's not what our club is. The building is just one element. It's the people that make our clubs, isn't it? And I'll come to you, Paul, and in terms of that really important engagement and keeping your members engaged.
It's part of our life. The community is such a big thing, and it's an important aspect, I believe. Like we might live next door to family, could live anywhere, but we live in this community, so we really, it's us, it's part of what our meaning is. And look, I can't wait to get back on the road, Clive. A brand new car out the front, it's going nowhere. I need to get out.
Look, that might be a good place to leave it, guys. We really appreciate your time. Thanks, Alan. Welcome to the role, and keep up the good work out there. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy, I know you have been enjoying getting on the road and visiting your clubs. So that's great.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
And Jacko, great to see that the restrictions are starting to be lifted, and you'll be able to get out there and start doing what I know you love doing, which is touching base with clubs and inspiring them to bigger and better things. So all the best, mate.
Monday, mate. Monday.
Alrighty, that is another edition of the RBM Roundtable. As I said, if you want the details of your local regional bowls manager, and who wouldn't, it's head to bowls.com.au, head to the club support section, choose regional bowls managers, and you can pick the person that is in your area, because we've got the whole of Australia covered. We will catch you next time on the RBM Roundtable.